Hello, creepers. Before we dive in, hit like, subscribe, and drop in the comments the worst place you can imagine during a zombie outbreak. Now let's get to it. July 2nd, 1863. The morning air over Gettysburg tastes like gunpowder and fear. We've been camped on Little Round Top since dawn, the 20th Maine Regiment, watching the mist crawl across the valley like a living thing. You'd think after 2 days of slaughter, a man would grow used to the smell. But the stench of death never fades. It just seeps into your skin. I sit with my rifle across my knees, trying to clean it, though my hands won't stop shaking. The men around me are quiet. Too quiet. You can tell the fight took more from us than bullets. I open my journal. Writing helps me stay sane, or at least feel like it. I note the names of the dead from yesterday's skirmish, and the ones we had to finish off after dark. Some of them wouldn't stay still, even after a bullet through the heart. I told myself it was nerves or shock, but deep down, it didn't feel natural. Private Ellis, our drummer boy, sits beside me, tapping a slow rhythm on his canteen. He whispers, "You hear about the rebel line, Nate? They say some of them don't die right." I tell him to keep his mouth shut. We've all heard the same stories. But he just nods and says, "I saw one move, sir. Swear to God I did." I laugh it off. Soldiers see ghosts when they're too tired to sleep. Still, something about his eyes makes me uneasy. Later, I walk to the field hospital, a row of tents behind the ridge. The surgeon's apron is soaked red, and the groans never stop. There's a wounded private thrashing on a cot, pale as ash, blood leaking from a wound that should have killed him hours ago. His eyes roll white. His jaw snaps at the air. The surgeon mutters that it's fever delirium. Men in agony do strange things. But when the private's hand grips my sleeve, ice cold and strong, I nearly drop my rifle. The doctor shoves me back and drives a scalpel into the man's temple. The twitching stops. He looks at me, breathing hard. "Sometimes, the brain don't know it's dead yet," he says. I leave before he can explain more. Outside, the sky is burning orange. Cannon fire echoes in the distance, rumbling like thunder. I can hear the rebels shouting across the fields, their voices rising from the fog. Somewhere down the line, a man screams, short, sharp, then silence. Dunn, my corporal, joins me by the wall. He's chewing on hardtack like it's his last meal. "You believe the talk?" he asks. I tell him no. He smirks. "Then you ain't been looking close enough." We stand there a long time, staring out at the valley. The smoke hangs low. Crows circle above the bodies left from yesterday's charge. Every so often, one of the corpses twitches, and I tell myself it's just gas or muscle reflex. But when one of them sits up, just for a second, I forget how to breathe. I blink, and it's gone. Maybe my mind's playing tricks. Maybe not. Night falls fast. The campfires glow dim in the fog. Somewhere, a man starts singing a hymn, but his voice cracks halfway through. I try to write again, but my hand won't stop trembling. The ink runs where sweat hits the page. I jot down one last line before I close the book. Something's wrong here. Ellis drifts to sleep beside the fire, clutching his drum like a shield. Dunn cleans his bayonet in silence. I can't shake the sound from the hospital. The scraping, the screams, that awful wet noise when the scalpel hit bone. Tomorrow, they say, the rebels will charge again. Another day, another storm of lead. But somehow, I'm not afraid of the Confederates anymore. It's the ones who won't stay dead that keep me awake. July 3rd. The sun barely rises before the cannon fire starts again. The air shakes with every blast, dirt raining down from the ridge. I grip my rifle tighter, my knuckles white beneath the grime. We're told the Confederates are massing across the field, A full assault coming straight at us. After yesterday, no one believes we'll survive another charge, but orders are orders. We line up along the stone wall, bayonets fixed, hearts hammering. The fog burns off just enough for us to see them. A gray wave, hundreds deep, marching in formation. The thunder of their boots rolls up the hill. "Hold your fire!" Captain Baxter shouts. His voice cracks on the last word. The air turns hot. Then deafening muskets roar, and the line disappears in smoke. I fire, reload, fire again. Mechanical, desperate. Men fall around me, blood spraying like rain. I can't hear anything but the crack of rifles and the screaming. Then I see it. A Confederate soldier, maybe 15 feet away, takes a round straight through the chest. The impact knocks him flat. He twitches, then gets back up. Keeps walking. There's a hole the size of a fist in his uniform, blood pouring down, but he doesn't even flinch. Another shot drops him again, and again, he rises. His head jerks to one side, eyes glassy, jaw slack. He makes this awful choking sound, like air escaping a broken bellows. I freeze. My mind refuses to understand what I'm seeing. Dunn yells, "Hit his damn head!" I take aim, trembling, and squeeze the trigger. The bullet cracks through his skull. He drops for good this time. Silence, just for a heartbeat. Then chaos. Half the gray line keeps coming, but it's not just them anymore. Some of our dead are getting up too. They move slow at first, staggering, dragging shattered limbs. Then faster, too fast. Their mouths open wide, their teeth red. The front breaks. Men fire wildly, some drop their guns and run. Officers shout orders that vanish under the screams. I see one of our sergeants tackled by a corpse in a blue coat. The thing bites his throat open before anyone can react. I fall back, reloading as I run. Ellis is beside me, drum abandoned, crying, "What's happening, Nate?" I can't answer. There's no answer. Smoke swallows the hill. I stumble past bodies, some twitching, some already feeding. One soldier's arm is missing. He's using the other to claw his own face, snarling like a dog. We form a small cluster behind a ruined cannon. Dunn shoves powder down his barrel, eyes wild. "They ain't men anymore," he says. "Shoot the head or don't bother." Captain Baxter's voice cuts through the noise, raw and shaking. "Hold the line! Hold!" He never finishes. One of the dead, a private, uniform torn, grabs him from behind and sinks teeth into his neck. Blood sprays across the stones. Baxter gurgles, stumbles, and the dead man drags him down. Dunn fires point blank, blowing half its face away. I grab Ellis and pull him toward the trees. The hill's lost. The regiment's gone. We run. Behind us, the world falls apart. The sound of musket fire turning to screams, men begging for mercy that won't come. Down the slope, I see the Confederate line falter too. Their men are turning on each other, ripping and biting. The war, all the hatred, the flags, the commands, it all means nothing now. Blue and gray, both devoured under the same sun. We reach the tree line and stop, gasping. I turn to look back. The field is a nightmare. A sea of writhing bodies, smoke and fire. The wounded crawl. The dead rise. The living shoot at anything that moves. Ellis vomits in the dirt. Dunn just stares, mouth open, whispering prayers. I reload, hands trembling so hard the powder spills. My brain feels split in two, half screaming to run, half trying to make sense of the impossible. A horse gallops past without a rider, eyes rolling, flank torn open. It crashes into a tree and doesn't move again. Dunn grips my shoulder. "We gotta go," he says. "Back to the ridge, to anyone still breathing." But I know the ridge is gone. I saw it burn. We push deeper into the woods, moving fast, every crack of a twig making us jump. The screams follow us, faint at first, then closer, human and not human all at once. I can still hear them when we stop to rest. That guttural sound, a mix of hunger and rage, echoing between the trees. Ellis whispers, "Are they alive?" I shake my head. No, there's something else. He looks at me, eyes wide. Then what do we do? The truth hits me like a blow. We survive, I say, whatever it takes. And somewhere out in the smoke, a single shot rings out. Then another, then silence. The Battle of Gettysburg is over. But whatever started here, it's only beginning. We moved through the woods until the sounds of the battlefield faded behind us. Just the distant crack of rifles and the low rumble of cannon fire. Every step felt heavier than the last. The air stank of smoke and rot. There were 3 of us now. Me, Corporal Dunn, and young Ellis. We didn't talk much. There wasn't anything left to say. The trees thinned near a small farmhouse at the edge of a wheat field. The roof was half collapsed, windows broken. Smoke curled from a chimney that shouldn't have been burning. Dunn raised his rifle. "We clear it first," he said. We moved slow, quiet, the way you do when you know something's wrong. I pushed the door open with the barrel of my gun. The hinges moaned like a dying man. Inside, the air was thick, the smell of rot mixed with burnt meat. A family must have lived there once. The table was still set with plates, bread, and cold stew. Flies swarmed the walls. Then we found them. 2 bodies in the corner, a man and a woman. They looked like they'd been shot clean through the head. The revolver was still in the man's hand. I tried not to think about what that meant. Dunn checked the windows while I searched for supplies. Ellis stood near the door, eyes wide. "Are they gonna get up?" he whispered. I didn't answer. I just told him to stay close. We barricaded the windows and lit a small lantern. The place creaked with every gust of wind. Outside, we could hear them. Faint at first, then closer on footsteps. Just that dragging shuffle through the grass. Night fell fast. We took turns watching the fields. Every now and then, I'd see shapes moving against the moonlight. Slow, staggering shapes, heading nowhere. They didn't stop. They didn't tire. They just moved. Ellis tried to sleep, but woke from nightmares, shaking. "They were eating the drummer boys," he said, voice trembling. "I saw it. They don't stop, even when you shoot them." Dunn said nothing. He sat by the window, watching. I think he was afraid to close his eyes. Around midnight, we heard movement inside the barn behind the house. Boards cracking, something heavy shifting. We froze. Dunn nodded to me, and we stepped out, rifles ready. The night was cold, the stars hidden by smoke. The barn door hung half open, swinging in the wind. We crept closer. My heart pounded so loud, it felt like it would give us away. I pushed the door open with my bayonet. A horse lay dead inside, ribs chewed open, the floor slick with blood. Something had torn it apart. Then the noise, that wet, snarling sound from the shadows. I aimed my rifle just as a figure lunged from behind the stalls. Not human anymore, or at least not fully. The skin was gray, eyes black, mouth ripped wide. It moved faster than any man I've seen. The shot split the air, and the thing dropped. Its head hit the floor with a hollow crack. We backed out slow, rifles trained on the door. The barn went silent again. Back inside the farmhouse, Ellis was crying quietly, shaking so hard the lantern flickered. "They're everywhere," he said. "What if it's like this all the way to Washington?" No one answered. We didn't know. Later, I tried to use the telegraph. There was one in the next room, wires running out the window. The key was slick with something dark. I tapped a few words. 20th Maine. Little round top fallen men rising from the dead. No reply came. Just static. A faint clicking, almost like breathing. I pulled my hand away. The line was dead. We sat in silence after that, listening to the wind and the distant moans outside. Every sound made us flinch. Every creak of the floorboards felt like a warning. Ellis eventually drifted off, head resting on his drum. Dunn leaned against the door, rifle across his lap. I stayed awake, staring into the dark, wondering how far this would spread. The war was supposed to be hell already. But whatever had come over Gettysburg tonight, this was something worse. And for the first time, I wasn't sure there'd be a morning left to see. Dawn came gray and cold. The first light crawled over the fields, painting everything the color of ash. The farmhouse smelled of smoke and death, and the lantern had burned out hours ago. None of us had slept. Dunn sat by the window, rifle across his knees, staring at the wheat swaying outside. Ellis was still curled near the hearth, the ashes cold around him. His drum sat beside him like a forgotten relic of a world that no longer existed. I stepped outside. The air cut like glass. The field was quiet, except for the crows circling the dead horse by the barn. A thin fog rolled through the valley, carrying that smell, rot and gunpowder. I used to think nothing could smell worse than a battlefield. I was wrong. I walked to the well and splashed water on my face. It was icy, clean, real, a reminder that I was still breathing when so many others weren't. The water on my hands turned pink. I didn't know if it was blood from the night before or just stained skin that would never wash clean again. Dunn came out after a while. He didn't say anything at first, just looked out toward the tree line, where the smoke of Gettysburg still rose. "You think anyone made it?" he asked. I didn't answer right away. "Maybe," I said finally. "Maybe someone did." He nodded, though we both knew what that meant. If they had made it, they were running or hiding like we were. Soldiers without a war, men without a cause. Ellis came out next, clutching his drum. His face was pale, lips trembling. "Sir," he said softly, "they're still out there. I saw them by the fence." I raised my rifle and looked through the sights. Sure enough, two figures stood near the far end of the field, half hidden by the fog, swaying. Their uniforms were torn. One wore blue, the other gray. Both were wrong. They didn't move like men. They just stood, staring toward the house. "Inside," I said. "Now." We backed in and barred the door again. The sound of the latch dropping was louder than I meant it to be. Ellis started shaking. "Why them? Why not us?" he asked. "We got hit by the same smoke, the same air. Why are we still normal?" I looked at him. He was just a boy. Couldn't have been older than 16. I didn't have an answer. Dunn spat into the dirt floor. "Ain't no reason to it. Some curse, maybe. Or God's punishment." "God doesn't do this," I said. Dunn gave me a hard look. "Then who does?" I didn't reply. I didn't know anymore. The silence stretched until Ellis spoke again, voice cracking. "We should bury them. The people in the corner. They deserve that." I wanted to tell him no, that going outside again was suicide. But when I looked at those two bodies, I couldn't bring myself to refuse. So we dug. The ground was hard, the frost shallow, but cruel. Dunn and I took turns with the shovel, while Ellis stood guard. Every scrape of metal in the soil sounded too loud, like it would draw the whole world's attention. We laid the man and woman side by side under the apple tree behind the house. The revolver went with them. Ellis said a prayer. His voice shook on every word. I tried to join in, but the words stuck in my throat. When it was done, Dunn leaned on the shovel, sweat freezing on his brow. "That's 2 more graves in a world running out of ground," he muttered. We went back inside. The house felt emptier now, even with the 3 of us still there. Ellis sat by the wall, staring at the fresh dirt outside the window. "They were just trying to stay alive," he said quietly. "Like us." I nodded, and they did, for as long as they could. Dunn checked his rifle again. "Then we keep doing the same, as long as we can." The words sounded hollow. Survival didn't feel like victory anymore. It just felt like delay. As night began to fall again, we heard the moaning from the fields. More of them this time. A chorus, low and distant, rising and fading with the wind. I cleaned my rifle for the 3rd time that day, though the barrel was spotless. It gave my hands something to do. Ellis finally drifted to sleep, his head resting on the drum. Dunn stayed by the window, eyes on the horizon. I stared at the fire's dying embers and tried to remember what it felt like to believe in something. The flag, the cause, the future. All of it felt so small now. Out there, the war had ended in one night. No generals, no surrender, no glory, just hunger and silence. Dunn broke the quiet. "You think there's still an army left somewhere?" "Maybe," I said, "but I think we're on our own now." He nodded once, slow. Then he said what I'd been afraid to admit out loud. "Then we better start thinking like survivors, not soldiers." I looked toward the window, where the fog had swallowed the field again. The shapes were gone, or maybe they were closer now, hidden in the gray. Either way, I knew he was right. The war was over, but survival had only just begun. The next morning, we left the farmhouse behind. The fog was thick again, the kind that swallows sound and makes you feel like the world's been buried alive. We carried what we could, a little food, a few bullets, and what courage we had left. Dunn led the way, rifle ready, eyes scanning every shadow. Ellis followed close, his drum tied to his back, though he never touched it now. I brought up the rear. Every few steps I looked back, half expecting to see the dead pushing through the mist after us. The road stretched east, rutted and broken by wagon tracks. Burned farms dotted the hills. Smoke rose from the ruins, and the crows were already gathering. Once, we passed a carriage turned over in the ditch. The horse still hitched to it was nothing but bones and hide. Ellis whispered, "Where are we going?" "Toward the river," I said. "If there's any command left, it'll regroup there." Dunn snorted. "If there's any command left," he said, "they're either dead or eating each other by now." I didn't argue. The silence after that felt heavier than the fog. By midday, the sun broke through just enough to show the scope of the ruin. The countryside looked like hell had risen and walked across it. Fences torn down, wagons overturned, trees split by musket fire. The wind carried the faint moans of the dead, far off but constant, like the land itself was mourning. We found the first body near the crossroads, a Union soldier sprawled face down, his rifle beside him. At first, I thought he was gone for good, but as Dunn nudged him with his boot, the man twitched. "Wait!" I started, but too late. The thing turned over, face half-eaten, eyes black. It grabbed Dunn's leg with a sound like tearing cloth. He stumbled back, cursing, and fired once into its head. The echo rolled through the fields like thunder. "Quiet," I hissed. "You'll bring more." He kicked the corpse aside. "Then let 'em come." They did. From the woods ahead came that dreadful chorus, low moans turning into growls, growing louder with each second. The fog shifted, and shapes began to emerge. First a few, then a dozen, then more than I could count. "Run!" I shouted. We sprinted down the road, our boots pounding the dirt. Ellis stumbled but kept up, the drum on his back thumping like a heartbeat. The dead came fast, faster than they had any right to move. Some still wore uniforms. Others were just townsfolk, faces twisted, jaws torn open. Shots rang out. Dunn dropped 2. I hit 1 through the eye. But for every one that fell, 3 more appeared. We cut across a field, leaping a low fence, and crashed through the trees beyond. The forest swallowed us, branches whipping our faces. I could hear Ellis crying behind me, gasping for breath. We broke out near a creek. The current was fast, swollen with rain and ash. Dunn jumped in first, splashing hard. "Cross it!" he yelled. "They're slow in water!" I grabbed Ellis and pushed him ahead. The water was freezing, biting through our clothes. We stumbled and clawed our way to the far bank, coughing and soaked. Behind us, the dead hit the stream one by one. Some slipped under. Others kept coming, their limbs thrashing in the current. I reloaded fast, firing at anything that reached the shore. Dunn pulled Ellis up the bank. "Keep moving," he barked. "Don't stop till you can't hear 'em no more." We ran again, following the creek through the trees. The ground turned to mud, sucking at our boots. My lungs burned. My arms felt like lead, but fear kept me moving. At last, we reached a ridge overlooking a small valley. Below was a camp, or what used to be one, dozens of tents, most collapsed. The smell hit us before we reached it, rot and gun oil. "Army camp," Dunn said, breathing hard. "Maybe there's ammo." We moved in slow, rifles up. The camp was silent. Fires long dead, wagons overturned, rifles scattered. Bodies everywhere. Some wore blue, others gray. It didn't matter anymore. Ellis stepped on something soft and looked down. His face went white. "They're moving," he whispered. Before I could stop him, one of the bodies rolled over and grabbed his boot. Ellis screamed. I fired, and the shot took its head clean off. Then the camp came alive, not with soldiers, but with the sound of dozens of corpses stirring. The dead crawled from tents, from under wagons, from piles of their own. We formed a line and fired as fast as we could. The air filled with gun smoke and the stench of decay. Dunn shouted, "Fall back!" We ran between the wagons, tripping over gear and corpses. I grabbed Ellis's arm and hauled him toward a burned-out mess tent. Dunn kicked over a barrel of kerosene, grabbed a lantern, and smashed it open. Flames roared to life, spreading fast. The fire leapt from canvas to wagon, the camp turning into a wall of heat. The dead stumbled into it, moaning, burning, falling. The air shimmered with heat and screams. We broke out the other side and collapsed in the grass, gasping. Our faces streaked with soot. Behind us, the camp burned, the smoke rising straight into the gray sky. Ellis wiped his eyes. "We can't keep running," he said. "There's nowhere left to go." Dunn stared at the flames. "There's always somewhere," he said. "We just ain't found it yet." I looked toward the east, where the land dipped toward the river. The smoke drifted that way too, like it was leading us on. "Then we keep moving," I said, "before night falls." We gathered what ammo we could and started down the slope. The wind shifted, carrying with it the distant echo of moans. The world behind us burned, but it didn't matter. The dead didn't care about fire. They just kept coming, and we just kept running. By the next day, the river came into view, wide, gray, and crawling with fog. It looked less like salvation and more like the edge of the world. We reached the ridge above it near dusk. Smoke still hung over the valley, but through the haze, I could make out shapes. Wagons, tents, maybe even movement. For a moment, my heart lifted. "Camp," I said. "There might be survivors." Dunn raised his spyglass. "There's people down there," he muttered. "Hard to tell if they're breathing or not." We waited, watching. No gunfire, no shouts, just the flap of canvas in the wind. The silence didn't sit right. Ellis spoke softly. "If there's even a chance." I nodded. "We go." We followed a deer trail down the slope, keeping low. The closer we got, the stronger the smell became. Rot, smoke, and river mud. A few crows perched on broken posts, picking at scraps of cloth that once were uniforms. At the camp's edge, we found the truth. It wasn't a living camp. It was an evacuation gone wrong. Boats half sunk along the riverbank, supplies scattered, rifles left in the mud. Ellis stopped beside a row of bodies laid out under blankets. The wind lifted one corner, revealing a pale hand clutching a rosary. He whispered, "They were waiting for rescue." "Rescue never came," Dunn said grimly. We searched the camp anyway. Old habits die hard. I found a few cartridges, a canteen, and a tattered map showing the next crossing point, a bridge upriver near a town called Wright's Ferry. If there was still a way across, that might be it. Then, faintly, we heard it. A gunshot. Not far. One, then another. Dunn froze. "That ain't echo, someone's alive." We moved fast toward the sound, cutting through the fog. The river glimmered to our right, dark and slow. After a few minutes, we saw them. A small group of Union soldiers fighting to hold a barricade of wagons near the ferry road. 4 men, surrounded on 3 sides, firing into a crowd of the dead closing in. "Come on!" I shouted. We charged in, rifles blazing. The first of the dead went down hard. Dunn reloaded and fired again, dropping another through the skull. Ellis stayed close, trembling, but shooting true. When the last one fell, the soldiers turned their guns on us. Instinct, not malice. Then one of them lowered his weapon. "You're Union," he said, voice hoarse. "From the ridge?" "Were," Dunn said. "Ain't much ridge left now." The man nodded. His uniform was caked with blood. "Captain Mason, 47th Pennsylvania. We were ordered to hold this crossing, but..." He trailed off, glancing at the heap of corpses behind the barricade. "There's no holding anything anymore." "How many left?" I asked. "Just us. We sent the civilians ahead on the last boat this morning. Ferry's near useless now. Ropes snapped, boards coming apart." "Any of them make it across?" He hesitated. "Didn't stay to see. We helped them reinforce the barricade. Night was coming fast, and with it, the moans. Low and endless from the trees." Mason looked at me. "We've got 1 boat left. Half rotten, but it floats. We can try at dawn." I looked at the others. Ellis pale but determined. Dunn reloading with steady hands. The thought of crossing that river, of leaving this cursed land behind, felt like the first real hope in days. But hope is dangerous. It makes you hesitate. When darkness fell, the first wave hit. Dozens, maybe more, stumbling from the woods like shadows given flesh. We opened fire, muzzle flashes lighting the night. Every shot felt like a heartbeat, every reload slower than the last. Ellis kept near me, face streaked with grime. "They're not stopping," he shouted. "Then we don't either," Dunn yelled back. The dead pressed harder. Mason went down with a scream, dragged under the barricade. 2 of his men followed. We fell back toward the ferry dock. The river churned below, black as ink. The boat waited. Old, cracked, barely holding together. "Get in!" Dunn shouted. "Now!" Ellis jumped first. I fired one last round and climbed aboard. Dunn shoved the boat off just as the dead broke through the trees. The current took us, spinning the boat downstream. The ferry rope snapped with a sharp twang, echoing across the water. The last thing I saw before the fog swallowed the shore was the horde pouring down the riverbank like ants over a corpse. For the first time in days, I didn't feel trapped. I felt weightless, terrified, yes, but alive. Ahead of us lay the far shore. Maybe safety, maybe not. But for the first time, we had something worth dying for again. A final hope. The river carried us like driftwood through the fog. The current was faster than it looked, tugging the boat downstream, spinning it toward the rocks. Every creak of the wood sounded like a death knell. Dunn rowed with what strength he had left, jaw tight, arms trembling. Ellis clutched his drum and rifle, trying not to look at the dark water slapping against the sides. I kept watch at the bow, eyes scanning for the far shore that never seemed to get closer. Behind us, the screams had faded, swallowed by distance or drowned by the river. But I knew they were still there. The dead didn't stop. Not for water. Not for anything. The fog began to thin near dawn. Pale light spread across the surface, turning the river into liquid glass. That's when I saw movement on the opposite bank. Dark shapes, figures waving their arms. "People!" Ellis shouted. "They're alive!" Dunn narrowed his eyes. "Or they ain't." I raised my rifle, squinting through the mist. A handful of men stood on the riverbank beside a wrecked ferry post. Their uniforms were Union blue, but their faces were too pale, too still. One of them stepped forward into the light, and the truth hit me like a musket ball. Their eyes were gone. Hollow sockets. "Row!" I barked. "Other way!" Dunn dug the oars deep, but the current had us now. The boat spun sideways, carried straight toward the shore where the dead waited, swaying like reeds. Ellis fired a shot, the echo sharp across the water. One fell, but the rest surged forward, splashing into the shallows. "God help us," Dunn muttered. The boat struck a half-sunken log and jolted hard. Ellis tumbled backward, nearly overboard. I grabbed him by the collar and pulled him up as water poured in through the cracked hull. "We're taking on water," he shouted. "Bail it out or we're dead." He scooped with his helmet while Dunn rode like a madman. The dead waded deeper, reaching for us with gray hands. I fired again, hitting one through the jaw. But there were too many. Then the river turned, a bend pulling us away from the horde. The current dragged us faster and faster between high banks. Branches whipped overhead. For a moment, I thought we'd lost them. That hope died when I saw what waited ahead. The bridge. It wasn't standing anymore, just a jagged mess of beams and ropes hanging over the river. Pieces of it jutted from the water like the ribs of a carcass. Dunn saw it too. "Hold on." The boat slammed into the debris. Wood splintered. Ellis screamed as the impact threw us sideways. The world became a blur of cold water and broken timber. I went under. The current dragged me down, spinning me through darkness. My lungs burned. My hands found a beam, and I kicked until my head broke the surface. Gasping, I saw the wreckage scattered across the river. "Dunn!" I yelled. "Ellis!" A hand shot up through the water. Ellis, sputtering, clinging to the overturned boat. Dunn was nearby, coughing, still gripping one oar. We drifted toward the far bank, carried by the wreck of our own escape. The water shallowed. Mud caught my boots. I crawled onto the shore, dragging Ellis behind me. Dunn stumbled up after, soaked and shaking. We lay there a long time, breathing hard, staring at the gray sky. Then came the sound, faint at first, then rising, that low, awful moan we'd come to know too well. "They followed," Dunn said flatly. The river behind us churned with movement, dozens of them, maybe hundreds, swept along by the current, arms thrashing, faces pale beneath the ripples. We ran. The forest beyond the river was thick and twisted, full of fog and fallen trees. Every root snagged our boots. Every branch clawed at our clothes. The ground was slick, and Ellis slipped twice, catching himself on his drum strap ahead. Through the mist, I saw rooftops. A town, small and broken, but standing. The sign, half buried in mud, read Wright's Ferry. We burst through the main street, rifles ready. The place was deserted, or so it seemed. Doors hung open, windows shattered. The silence was unbearable. Then a voice. "You're alive." A man stepped from a doorway, uniform torn but clean. His eyes were red-rimmed from lack of sleep. Behind him, a few civilians huddled. A woman, 2 children, an old preacher clutching a Bible. Dunn raised his rifle halfway. "You armed?" The man nodded. "Some of us. We've been holding out here. Ferry went down 2 days ago. You come from the other side?" "Gettysburg," I said. He stared, stunned. "God help you." Before I could reply, a scream tore through the air, high and close. One of the townsfolk on lookout fell from the church roof, blood spraying from his throat. The dead had arrived. They poured from the tree line, crawling over fences, staggering into the street. The preacher started praying. The woman pulled her children close. Dunn shouted, "Barricade the doors!" We ran into the church, slamming the heavy doors shut. The pounding started almost at once. Fists and shoulders beating against the wood, Ellis helped drag pews into place, face white with fear. "Second floor!" Dunn shouted. "Windows!" We took positions at the open frames. I fired into the crowd below. Dunn reloaded beside me, grim and silent. The shots tore through the dead, but still they came. "Too many!" Ellis cried. "Keep shooting!" I shouted. The door cracked. The pews shifted. A cold wind blew through the gaps, carrying the stink of decay. The preacher fell to his knees, praying louder, as if words could hold the dead back. Then the church bell above us rang, not by human hands, but from the shaking. Its toll drowned the screams. "Back!" Dunn yelled. "We fall back to the vestry!" We moved fast, firing, reloading, retreating step by step. Ellis tripped near the altar, and I hauled him up as the first of the dead broke through. Dunn tossed his last lantern into the pews and fired. Flames roared to life, spreading through the dry wood. "Go!" he shouted. "Out the side!" We burst through the vestry door into the graveyard behind the church. Smoke poured from the windows, fire lighting the fog red. The dead followed, burning, shrieking, still coming. Dunn turned, rifle empty. "Run!" he shouted. "Don't look back!" I grabbed Ellis and pulled him through the tombstones. Behind us, Dunn charged into the fire, swinging the empty rifle like a club. The last thing I heard before the blaze swallowed him was his voice, raw and defiant. "Come on, you bastards!" The church collapsed in on itself, flames roaring into the night. Ellis and I reached the hill beyond the town and fell to our knees. The fire's glow lit the river in the distance, turning it into a ribbon of blood. I couldn't see Dunn anymore, only the burning church and the shapes still moving inside it. Ellis sobbed beside me. "He's gone." I looked back once, then forward to the dark woods ahead. "No," I said quietly. "He bought us time." And so we ran again, 2 souls against the world, because that's all survival was now, running until there was nowhere left to run. We walked until the fire was nothing but a glow on the horizon. The air smelled of wet ash and river silt. Dawn crept over the trees, pale and thin, touching the fog with a color that barely counted as light. Ellis and I didn't speak for a long time. There wasn't much left to say. Every sound behind us made him flinch. Every shadow looked like it might move. When we finally stopped, it was near an old barn by the edge of the woods. The roof sagged, and the doors hung crooked, but it was dry. I helped Ellis inside and barred the door with a plank. He sat down, clutching his drum like it could still protect him. His face was gray, his hands shaking. He'd lost too much. His regiment, his friends, his childhood. Maybe his faith, too. I checked my rifle. 1 round left. My powder was soaked, half my cartridges useless. The end of the world, and I was counting bullets. Ellis looked at me. "Do you think it's everywhere?" I nodded. "By now, it has to be." He swallowed hard. "Then what's left for us?" I didn't answer. I just looked out the cracks in the wall at the sunrise. The light didn't feel warm anymore. He fell asleep not long after. I kept watch, listening to the wind move through the wheat outside. Every so often, I thought I heard footsteps, but it was only the stalks bending in the breeze. Hours passed. The sun climbed higher. For the first time in days, there were no screams, no gunfire, no moaning. Just silence. I walked outside and sat on the steps. The world looked almost peaceful. Birds circling above, river mist rolling low, the sky clean again. If not for the ruins in the distance, you could almost believe things might return to normal. I thought of Dunn, of Captain Baxter, of all the men buried under the fields of Gettysburg. They'd fought for cause and country. I was fighting for something smaller now. 1 frightened boy, 1 last breath, 1 more sunrise. I pulled out my journal, the one I'd carried since Little Round Top. The pages were warped and blood-stained, but still intact. I wrote slow, careful, my hand shaking. July 6th. The war is over. The dead won't stay dead. We are heading south, following the river. If anyone finds this, know we tried. When I finished, I tore the page out and tucked it under a rock near the barn door. Someone might read it someday. Someone might know we were here. Ellis stirred inside, mumbling in his sleep. I thought about waking him, but I let him rest. He'd earned it. That's when I heard it. Faint, metallic, rhythmic. Not moaning, not footsteps. A tapping. I stood and turned toward the sound. It came from the tree line, steady and slow. Tap, tap, tap. My first thought was of the telegraph key back at the farmhouse, the one that clicked on its own. The sound grew louder. Ellis woke behind me. "Sir?" he whispered. I raised my rifle. "Stay back." The tapping stopped. The fog shifted, and through it came a figure. Uniform torn, face pale, drum hanging from its neck. The sticks moved in its hands, beating a hollow march. Tap, tap, tap. Ellis froze, his voice breaking. That's my drum." I pulled him behind me, heart pounding. The figure kept walking, slow and steady, the beat echoing across the field. When the wind cleared the fog for a heartbeat, I saw its face, eyes black and empty, mouth twisted into something that might have been a smile. The drum kept playing. We ran, and behind us, the rhythm followed, steady as a heartbeat, marking the death march of what was left of the living tap. Tap, tap. The sound that once led soldiers into battle now marked the end of the world.